Attorney General,
Yes.
Commissioner,
Yes.
We pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Industrial Commission, office consideration of approval of in 2026, 2025 Industrial Commission meeting minutes.
As presented.
Discussion. Roll call.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Attorney General.
Yes.
Governor.
Yes. Consideration of approval of professional services contract renewal.
Commissioners previously for the technical advisor contract consulting services agreement or looking at your program, you previously approved the 2-month extension on that. But before you attachment 20 back there, read is proposed contract for the year to. We've done the 2-month extension while discussions are ongoing, and now this is a new contract that'll bring us through June 30th. And now historically, the contract had always been between the Industrial Commission and the Energy Council. Last go around, it was put to Lignite, the foundation instead of the council. And now this contract will put it back with the Lignite Energy Council. Now, it's not 100% certain why it was requested, I guess, by the previous executive director, Lignite Energy Council, to put it with foundation, but they said it works a lot better tax wise and stuff to have it back with the council. So that's what this contract is with. Be through June 30th, 2026, between Industrial Commission and Lignite Energy Council for this technical advisor consulting and certain services agreement with the research program.
My only concern is generally when we contract with an individual, we're looking for a certain set of skills, disciplines, individual. Now, whoever the council chooses as a technical advisor, that's who we'd be working with.
Well, yeah, Commissioner, the plan is for, so the current Mike Holmes, is current technical advisor.
Which we're very happy with.
There's, I don't know exactly where conversations are with that, but I guess the hope is for him to stay on through this contract or as long as possible anyway. But if the time comes that he retires and there's a new individual that needs to be sought, then that would certainly be for your approval. And as far as this contract goes, it would be your ability to approve as far as the new contract with the new individual.
So if Holmes is done before June 30th, we will revisit this. Yes.
Okay, so there's something in here that says if he's no longer available, we get to go back and have a discussion about this. The contract's just not a continuation.
Yeah, you have your ability to
Okay.
terminate, revisit, yeah.
So moved.
Second. Any more discussion? That was the same question I had. All those in favor, or roll call?
Commissioner,
Yes.
Attorney General.
Yes.
Governor.
Yes.
That is it for the administrative office.
Yeah. Good evening. How are you?
Good, and yourself?
I am good.
Mindy, did you send Mindy one? Yes, yep. Yes.
And the first item we have is North Dakota Building Authority, the link for 2020 June ended, or the year ended June 30th. We have Mindy Piatz from Freddie Marks, who the firm conducted that audit. Mindy?
Yep, good morning. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I'm Mindy Piatz with Brady Marks, and as Deanne said, we perform the audit for building authorities. So I'll briefly go over the highlights and opinions that we give on the audit. And so first off, starting with our independent auditors report. At the top of our report, the opinion paragraph states that the financial statements fairly present in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. So this is a clean opinion, meaning the financials are materially correct in accordance with GAAP. It's the highest level of assurance that we can provide over the financial statement information. Following the auditor's report is management's discussion and analysis. I'd like to just highlight that this is a good spot to look at to see comparative information. It also provides commentary from management about significant changes during the year. Next, I'm going to flip over to the statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position for the building authority. So for fiscal year 2024, you can see it was a pretty comparable year to last year for 2023. I would note all this information is in the thousands, it's rounded, but there were no new debt issues for the building authority during 2024. So it was just business as usual, collecting payments on the existing leases and then making payments on the debt. Additionally, in accordance, in performing our audit, we also are required to perform the audit in accordance with government auditing standards. What this means is, as part of designing our audit, we look at internal controls over the building authority for designing our audit procedures. However, we don't give an opinion on internal controls, but if we become aware of any kind of deficiencies, we are required to communicate those in this letter. Again, this is an unmodified opinion. We did not identify any deficiencies or material weaknesses. So there are no findings for the building authority. And so again, a clean report for performing the audit in accordance with government auditing standards. And then the last letter included in the financial reporting package is just a letter of communications that we are required to inform those charged with governance upon completion of the audit based on our accounting professional standards. I'm not going to go over the letter in detail. All items in this letter were positive. And so with that, I just want to thank Deanne and her staff for getting the audit done in a timely manner. They get us the information fairly quickly and are easy to respond to all our questions. And so we certainly appreciate the help. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have at this time.
We have had the same experience with Deanne, so.
Good to hear.
Any questions? Any questions? Audits are always nice.
Yes. The agency with no employees.
So it feels a little personal to you while you're.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I did hear your boss has stopped ordering one of those.
Yeah.
Any other business under building authority?
That is it. That's usually pretty much the once a year for the building authority, unless we change authorized officers. And Karen, myself, and Joe Morissette are the authorized officers, and PFA staff does the accounting, and Bank of North Dakota is the trustee, and that's about it. And there, I think 2019 was the last time that the legislature authorized any projects under the building authority. So just 2010 bond issue and 2020 bond issue is all that's left under it. So
Okay. We'll go into approval of following revolving loan funds.
okay, so the first loan is under the capital financing program, which has not been utilized since 2021. So it's been a while since we've had a loan under that program, but the city of Burlington did not utilize the SRF bid package when they bid this project, and the DEQ staff tried really hard to make it eligible for the SRF program, but try as they might, it was not possible to go back and amend in all the SRF requirements. So they are going to use our capital financing program to expand their primary doing so and make some improvements to accommodate future growth. They're requesting $1.4 million. And they've put in local funds of just a little over $1 million for a total project of $2.4 million. They're requesting a 20-year term. They're fortunate that last month for the resolution, we're going to be refinancing to 2015 capital financing program bonds. So we'll include that in refunding. So they'll get some efficiencies in there with that bond issue. They're looking at an average annual payment of about $107,000. And they have raised their rates to be able to make this estimated bond payment. We won't know. We plan to sell the bonds tomorrow. And based on that information, the advisory committee recommended approval of this loan.
So moved.
Second. Discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Attorney General,
Yes.
Governor,
Yes. Bowman.
Okay, we are on to the
About time now.
state revolving fund loans. The first one is under the Clean Water SRF program. It's to replace and rehabilitate their sanitary sewer mains. They've requested almost $4 million, 3.9, and they are eligible for $2,975,000 of loan forgiveness. So this will give them a net loan of $991,750. They've requested a 30-year loan term. They will issue revenue bonds payable with their sewer user fees. Their average annual payment will be $41,788. They anticipate raising their rate $10. They've got an existing base rate of $12.50, and that should help them to meet our required 110% net operating coverage. They currently have no outstanding debt. Based on that information, the advisory committee recommended approval of this loan.
So moved.
Second. Discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Attorney General,
Yes.
Governor,
Yes. Reports.
The next loan is also under the Clean Water Program. This is the city of Grand Forks requesting an increase of $50 million to their existing $54,620,000 loan. So make it a total of $104,620,000. They've also put in local funds of $5,300,000.
Are we doing clean or drinking?
Clean water.
Okay.
on the agenda.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
Drinking.
Oh, I'm sorry. We can do drinking.
So much for your audits.
Okay, drinking water, sorry.
One minor mistake a year. Is it September or October?
September.
Hey, you got 3 months now. There's fun.
This is drinking water and the attachments are behind tab 4.
Thanks.
Sorry about that.
You bet.
Alrighty, so drinking water, they are requesting a $12,825,000 increase to their $1,050,000 loan. So this would be a $13,875,000 loan. This is eligible for loan forgiveness, so this is under the build funding for the lead service line replacement. Obviously, $1 million wasn't going to go very far towards the 700 known lead service line replacements. This doesn't they had actually requested a little bit more than $12 million. There's one more request coming, and that depletes our funding for 2022 through 2025. And so, and that next request probably be next month. And then that just leaves us with our 2026 lead service line money, and we will probably have to just, we'll have to go through the fundable list. So it'll have to just be the highest ranked projects that'll be eligible. So that's a little different than we've had to do in the past. Usually it's just those that are ability to proceed and ability to pay. So back to Grand Forks, this is a 30-year loan request. The average annual payment will be $153,817. Their users are paying $9.26 for base rate and $4.78 per thousand, and that's for the residential. Their commercial users pay $10.16 for their base rate and $4.68 per thousand. They meet our operating coverage with no need for a rate increase, though they do review annually and adjust that base and volume rate as needed and sufficiently meet our 110% net operating coverage requirement. And based on that information, the advisory recommends approval of this loan.
So moved.
Discussion. Roll call.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Attorney General.
Yes. Yes. All right.
Oh,
Grand Forks.
back to the water treatment plant improvements that I started on. They requested the $50 million increase to the $54.62 million loan that you had previously approved, and this is to do improvements to their wastewater treatment plant. I'm not going to go into all the details of what they're doing up there. It's an almost $110 million project. The average annual payment will be $4.4 million over the 30-year term. Their base rate for their wastewater is the residential users is $16.27, and they charge a $3.67 volume charge. And their commercial base rate is $17.61 per month and a $3.96 volume charge. Again, they review those annually and adjust as necessary. And their net operating coverage is in great shape. Requirement there as well. And it also looks, when you take into account the growth, should account for the repairs, operation, and maintenance that increases into the future. And based on that information, the advisory committee recommended approval of this loan.
So moved.
Second. Discussion.
So they, this should be it then?
Yes. At this point in time, I did ask about the new industries moving in. The previous industry that was going to move in, there was going to be phases 3 through 5 after this, but this should be the end of the road.
That's a question here.
Not an open meeting. Or it's an open meeting. It's not, we don't take comment from.
No public instruction.
About the law. To effect August 1st. Go ahead.
Okay,
That's,
that's the end of it.
Oh,
question was
Any-
answered. Thank you.
any other question? Roll call.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Attorney General,
Yes.
Governor.
Yes.
All right, better look at my agenda and make sure. Lisbon, clean water. So Lisbon Clean Water, they are requesting $9,180,000 under the Clean Water loan to fully replace 16 blocks of water main, storm, and sanitary sewer streets. They've also have a $1.2 million drinking water request. Department of Water Resource Cost Share of $1,000,000 and BND Infrastructure Revolving Loan Fund of $2,840,000 for this $120,000 request. They will repay this with improvement bonds payable with special assessments. The average annual payment will be $420,000. And they've got their water base rate, just for informational purposes, is $10.60, and their sewer base rate is $12.90. And They are meeting our net operating coverage requirements, not that it matters when you're budgeting improvement bond. But they are in compliance with our existing SRF loans that they do have outstanding, because they do have 9 SRF loans outstanding. And based on that information, the advisory committee.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Attorney General,
Yes.
Governor,
Yes.
Hey. Next is a memo of the 4 loans that were under, that were approved by the advisory committee. One was the companion loans, that Lisbon loan, it was the drinking water loan, and then there were 2 Dickinson loans for $1 million, and the Valley City had a $600,000 loan. If you have any questions on those, I would go ahead and answer that. Those, I guess, one.
Pretty straightforward.
Okay, and then just an update, so that brings it to 57 loans between it, that the advisory committees approved. So September 30th for a total of $297,934. Last year, the total for the year was 43 loans for $149,493. So
Tells me is smaller communities, smaller municipalities are getting better at tracking data and making sure they have what they need so they can apply for those and give the infrastructure.
and the bill money, I think a lot of the lead services through, and it's
And it's coming to an end.
like, so it's. Don't think I've ever been to this many IC meetings ever in a row. Usually there's a month off somewhere along the way. So, eventually. He won't see me every single month, maybe. Thank you. Well, I'm trying to stay with you guys too. Thank you.
Hey, Nathan.
Great.
We can get used to some of that.
Well,
Morning.
And you're first.
Morning.
I'm mostly excited to see Ed. Drew is.
Oh, yeah.
I think I do. If not, I'll get it back.
Gonna announce it.
Usually until 11:30, so for commentary.
So bring my tools to these meetings.
Yeah.
All of us.
Wherever's going. Got to go buy him first. I've got a lot of tools.
We're gonna start with Ed's, survey update, so.
If you turn to the graph on page 1, the during the second quarter, we had geologists from 4 companies in the core library looking at our geologists, scientists from ERC, as well as students. All told, look at 7,900 feet of core. Additionally, we sent out 4,600 feet of core to a company to do an in-house whole workshop. We also photographed 2,500 feet of core, generating 3,500 photographs from the subscription site. And then photographed another 2,600 feet with the iPods, generating 250 photographs. On page 2, I put this in for Commissioner Goring. I thought he might remember those pictures.
Oh,
The bad core boxes we had. This is, over time, typically in a given year, we rephotograph 200-300 boxes that are in bad shape. But we started looking at this back in 2004, and we counted up, we said, we've got 41,000 bad boxes, 50-year-old boxes in the core library. And we needed space. We saw that we were only able to stack 32 of them in a bin. If we put new boxes in there, we could get 40, so a 20% space savings. And so we identified 41,000 to rebox. By the end of the program, we had reboxed 113,000. And it was lucky because Bakken was taking off. We had all these core boxes and sample boxes coming in. And even with all that space savings that we did, we still ran out of room in 2015. And luckily, We got the new core library expansion completed 2016. Landslide,
Making me think back to one of my first meetings when I was here and you were going through all the stuff and I asked the question, well, when you get them all photographed and analyzed, go through the whole thing, you just throw them away. And everybody at the table looked at me like, the hell brought this guy in here? What's wrong with you? Yeah, but I thought, you can diagram, yeah, no. So I'm glad you boxed them.
I might have mentioned that Representative Brandenburg went on a tour, and I think Governor, you might have been on that same tour with the Energy Development Transmission Committee back in 2015. But he had made the same comment in let's say the hearing, and once he went on the tour, he said, "Okay, I get it now."
Well, I know how he felt after he made that comment. Yes, I know. Looks.
So, talking about landslide program back in February, just to show a couple of diagrams, and again, this is on page 3. So we started out, it was a 21-year program just to do the phase 1 and just to get some of the maps done. We focused on the oil producing area in the west, but there we're using paper photographs, aerial photographs. Once LiDAR came in, we were able to greatly accelerate that program and put 4 geologists on that. You can see within 5 years, we did the entire state, 1,400 maps, and mapped for almost 46,000 landslides. And now we're doing the phase 3, you may recall, is we're comparing 2 LiDAR coverages. And they just flew, luckily, our Water Resources Agency has done a great job of coordinating this with the federal agencies and then themselves getting the money. And they just reflew Williams and Ward County. The last 2 now we've got double coverage for those. So phase 3, we look at 2 different LiDAR coverages, generally flown 10 years apart, and we can see movement. We've identified 12 that moved within that time period, so that we consider it.
How about Barnes County? Barnes
Yes.
County's got some. You guys went back.
Yeah, it's been done with the I'll look and see where LiDAR on that. What's the second condition? But hold on that.
Thank
On page 4, Medora fossil dig ran from June 21st to 29th. And unfortunately, we had a lot of rain.
Rain.
Yes.
Tons.
Really got rained out. We got rained out 3 days. Another day we actually ran the program, but half the people didn't show up because they over. So the 102 participants, only 51 got to participate in the day. Also, in May, I mentioned that we also bring the summer biology students, high school students out for part of the day at Bismarck and public high schools account for over 80% of all summer biology. But a lot of the schools don't offer that anymore. But we generated 90 students, and unfortunately, Legacy High School, for whatever reason, did summer biology this year. And Mandan, which always has the largest class, the bus broke down in the South Union Park, so we only had 34 students. As we were wrapping that up, we got a call from the office and then from the White House that the vice president was wanting to come out for fossil dig. He had talked to Secretary Burgum. And so
So Burgum got him in for a dig. He got to come in, and he's never been to the state before. And he came in, and you site. I've been begging you for 4 years. Making sure.
You don't have the
You
right
took the
connection.
second step after asking.
actually, we considered this, Attorney General, we consider this a dry run for you.
Oh, yeah.
So,
What, work through the security?
stuff it out.
Yeah, okay.
So that's on page 5. We're open on July 3rd. There's over a dozen agents that we worked with. Unfortunately, got an inch of rain that night. And so you can see as a photograph on page 5, those are my footprints on the Glenn Boyd, our chief paleontologist on the right, and the Secret Service agent. So we were slipping and sliding all over. I immediately called Nathan and I said, "Hey, we're in trouble here." I think Governor, he reached out. He moved. And Next thing we know, we've got a grader that's come to the site that, got a mile and a half out of the door, mile and a half, road that's poorly maintained. And we just barely got in there on that. Then we've got a 6/10 of a mile trail up on top. That grader was able to, that's on page, top of page 6, he was able to get up. He jumped out. I said, Shannon, you a site personnel eyes, and he said, supposed to be at the Dickinson 4th of July parade. I said, well, we're all supposed to be somewhere else. But the guy showed up, but he got stuck right, there's a little dip there. And he wasn't able to get beyond that, but he did turn up a lot of dry rock underneath that. Then Senator Kessel showed up and it took a look at the site. And at that point, Robbie Loff had sent from the Teddy Roosevelt Library, had sent skid steer over. And that's sitting there at the bottom of page 6, immediately it slid off. So it's stuck there. And they were worried about it rolling, which I said, I didn't even know if you could roll, the center of gravity on the skid steer. But then Senator Kessel took the 2 workers back to the door and he didn't think it looked very good. And so while he was gone, then he dug this 2-track and dropped the dry rock in there. The grader had put up, sent him the picture, and then on top of page 7, we proceeded to dig a ditch and try to get the water out of the site and then remove that wet material. You can see we're under the watchful eyes of the anti-sniper squad from the Williston PD. And then, lo and behold, Senator Kessel comes back with his sons Grant and Garrett with their own skid steer, and then one of them jumps in that skid steer on the side and gets it right up on site. And they were able to essentially build that platform right up to Harp, which is where our the fossil dig site was. And then on top of page 8, that's the aftermath of that. So really the highlight that the vice president was very appreciative. We had to contact Secret Service by 11 o'clock. They'd already changed his time. He was supposed to, the dig was supposed to occur at 9. We ended up doing it at 2. They went to Buck Hill instead and had an opportunity to run into several rattlesnakes. So they had, I think that was part of their vacation. But the real payoff for us is when the vice president, that whole motorcade came, 20-some vehicles. Leading the charge was his 8-year-old son, who was very interested in fossils. So he ran all the way down. We had a couple tables of fossils for us to look at, and then they were able to dig for.
Oh, great. Couple things. One, vice president just wanted to bring his wife and kids out here because they'd never been here. This wasn't like a political event. 2, it was the 4th of July. We weren't doing nobody was everybody was doing 4th of July things. And then 3, and I think most importantly, the amount of time it would have taken to do 1/1000th of this indeed would have been months. And a bunch of people from Western North Dakota just thought it was really cool that the vice president was coming and just went to work blowing up Nathan's phone, and then Nathan would blow up my phone, and then I'd call Senator Kessel and then Mark Melmer and all of that. So this wasn't an all of government approach. This was all of people just wanting to make the vice president have the best experience possible. And it happened in the span of 5 hours on the morning of the 4th of July. So if any of them are listening, I have already personally done that. Nathan knows this as well. Thank you to everybody who just took time out of their holiday to try and make the experience as good for the vice president and his family. Because it was real. At 8 a.m. in the morning, to say I was skeptical would be an understatement.
Yeah, we had a lot of help. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, the team worked hard on it.
And I don't know about you, but nobody asked me for anything. They just did it.
Right.
Yeah.
On page 8, under regulatory programs, we issued 2 permits for coal exploration, 1 for subsurface minerals during the 2nd quarter of this year, 5 for geothermal. All of those were commercial. And then for publications, that 2nd quarter, they were all phase 3 landslide maps, 112 of those. Then on page 12, for our outreach, we did 5 tours of the paleontology exhibits in the Hermiston, along with the paleo laboratory and state fossil collection to University of Mary class, a center Stanton fifth graders, which we always love to do. The teachers that were there for the Lignite Energy Council Teacher Seminar, Legacy High School Special Needs class. And then in addition, we judged for the science and engineering fair of the transformers. First day, spoke to Assembly and Walker Junior High sixth graders, as well as general public there at the Civic Center. And I mentioned about the high school summer biology students. We give them a presentation and a classroom presentation before they, and then critical minerals presentations. American owners. With that concludes my presentation, Governor. If it's okay, I'm going to run right after this. I'm going up to Northwest North Dakota on the Woolly Mammoth dig. Our paleontologists were already up there 2 weeks ago. They were from the juvenile T-Rex excavation. So we'll be releasing information on that in the coming months.
It's cool. Any questions?
Is that where you're going at 11?
No, I got it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Right. All right, Mark's gonna join us. We have several things on the remainder of the agenda. First, we're gonna cover rules. Mark will go through the draft rule amendments. We have 6 different orders, 4 of which are similar to last month's cases and civil penalties, and so those can likely be grouped together. And then 2 additional, just a couple of orders about our business, but with that, whenever Mark's ready, he'll run through the rule amendments. Which I believe we got to your staff.
Yeah.
Sometime
I've been
3-4 weeks ago.
Morning.
One
So the first item I'm going to go over is our proposed rulemaking. Proposed rules are as a part of a 2-year cycle. We all implement coinciding with the legislative assembly to incorporate any legislative changes. This go around, we did not have any rules passed pursuant to legislation. Changes are to provide clarity, clean up some form names and sections where we had other changes in, provide regulatory relief in some areas, enhance safety and environmental protection, codify some current practices, and implement our policy of innovation and continuous regulatory improvements. We sought input from our staff. The North Dakota Petroleum Council had some suggestions. And in all, we touched 33 separate regulations. Timeline, the legal ads have been sent, the minutes have been published. There were 3 counties that didn't run the first time, they ran it the second time. Obviously, we're here today to get your approval to proceed with rulemaking. We have hearings scheduled for October 20th and 21st. On the 20th, there'll be a hearing in Bismarck and hearing in Dickinson. On the 21st, there'll be a hearing in Wilson and a hearing in Minot. Comment period closed on October 31st. And I'm bringing the rules back to you with any changes after incorporating the comments at the November 25th commission meeting. And then go through the rest of the procedure within the general's office and the Administrative Rules Committee hearing, and hopefully adopt the rules effective April 1st of 2020. So on my spreadsheet, had to have my wife read this last night. It seemed pretty small.
I've talked about you, just giving you the official numbers at the very back of your binder. You'll find in the large spreadsheets that I go and mark has. I feel it's easier to follow.
and you brought my readers.
I'm just gonna highlight certain for all of them. 4302 read 18. There's an amendment to allow for larger drilling horizontal wells. Currently, it allows the size of drilling to 640 acre spacing or drilling units on one section. Cultural change that allows us to join adjacent sections so they can drill a 2-mile well or even a 3-mile well. Without having to well, this stuff to justify the drilling unit. 329. Into change, we're requiring, we're going to require prior notifications, gas pipeline installations. Already require that for water lines and for oil lines. Feel this is necessary because if you're putting pipelines in the ground, it doesn't matter what kind you're putting in the ground. If you're going to hit something, you're going to hit something. So we want to have prior notification where these lines are proposed to be so we can hopefully avoid mishaps when they're installing those lines. We're also proposing quite a submission and shape files that have been created for gas pipelines that would only be if they've been created so that operators already have them. We want them to file them with us and add them to our GIS and aerial. And we have regulation for 4331. For us, it's somewhat of a significant change. Right now, you cannot transport oil from a new oil well until the completion report is filed. And in the interim, that takes time for companies to put the in. They have to call in. Well, this what our plan is that this will change is we will approve the Form 8. It's the authorization transport. We'll approve that when it's submitted. It's so once that is approved, they can move oil without getting verbal approval while the complete report is being filed. So that'll take, right now our inspectors are issuing hundreds of verbals to move oil on these new oil wells. So we try to take a little bit of workload off of them. Under 4302 or 331, we're removing, I guess it's the same. We're removing the requirement that when you do a workover or you do a pump change, right now the rule says you have to file the pre and post production of that well. It's sometimes a struggle for the operators to get that information if the production is worn out. We can before the change. Under 4302 and 344 and 45, we're combining those sections. So we're actually repealing 45 and combining them in sections. It just, they were somewhat redundant. It will just make it easier for the to follow and understand. Under 48.1, this is quite significant. We're proposing to remove the requirements for hearing for diverse ownership facilities with central thing as right now. You have diverse battery, you have to have a hearing. So we have 10 to 20 hearings a month on these. It's the same procedure as a common facility. And we get nobody appears in these hearings. So this will relieve the industry from having to put those documents together to have a hearing. It'll relieve us from having to write an order for every one of those facilities. I think that is a win-win for everybody on that will change. Under 52, we're kind of modernizing here, and 52.1 reform by rules right now require that reports be signed. Most all of our reports are filed through XML batch submission, so there's no signature that's possible. So we're just modernizing that. Under 80.1, this is a new section that requires a gas purchaser to file the gas, their gas purchaser report. Currently, it's the gas plant that files it. And in most instances, there'll be no change because One Oak is buying the gas and One Oak's taking the plant. It's really no different. But we do have some systems out there where they purchase the gas, they put it on a pipeline and goes to a gas plant. So the gas plant has no idea where
This will
that.
get you more accurate information.
Yes.
In those,
And you don't have to wait for a third party to give you the information so you can
Yeah.
report that.
you'll get it quicker and more accurately.
They're also, we're getting a lot of interconnects out there. When they transfer gas from one system to the other, the gas plant that receives that gas now has to go back to the other gas plant and say, okay, I need your information so I can file my report. So it makes it closer to the source, to provide more accurate and timely information. 3, that reflects that change. So it now removes reporting the gas feature well from the gas plant and that's just
change there. Under 88.1, that's what we call special hearings or administrative hearings. There's certain categories that you can still have a hearing, but it's basically a paper hearing. You file your application. There's interaction if necessary between staff and the operator. There is no personal testimony required. So in that section, we're removing the central tank battery. That will no longer require hearing, although we can require one if we feel necessary, or if a mineral owner, somebody wanted to have a hearing, we could still have a hearing. And we're also adding unopposed risk penalties that, because if there's no opposition, if we have a hearing right now, they just basically say, here's our information and we have no further testimony. And so that'll make that streamline that process. Under 88.2, we're also modernizing, changing telephone to telecommunication system for our hearings where they appear via Teams. And so there's no telephone anymore. There's some in there. And under 430501, our geologic storage of carbon dioxide, adding a definition of a carbon dioxide storage complex. Right now, there's a little bit of ambiguity. But we basically utilize the confining zone above and below the action zone, but sometimes there's some other layers in there that are not identified, so that would just make sure that the entire interval is clear that that's part of the complex. We had to change our regulation to match a statute. I don't know what happened, but when this regulation was originally written, it did not match the statute, and it only required one publication. The statute requires two, so we just changed it to match that. And we're also adding a section under 11.4 where the commission can require passive seismic monitoring. Most operators do that anyway, but we want to make sure that we have the authority to require that. As I'm sure you're aware, if we have any induced seismicity, that will be quite exciting. We want to make sure that we can stay ahead of that and before it gets to be an issue.
Exciting and interesting.
It gets people excited. If there's any other ones you have questions on, I'd be happy to answer them. Some of the highlights. A lot of the other ones are form name changes and things like that.
So it's generally a long process. Probably have several months in
It's
front
9
of
months
us.
and having a baby.
Yeah. When's the first, public hearing or public input?
October 20th.
No, I know you said that, sorry. We have shape files on gathering lines,
We do.
so gas lines aren't included in that?
They are now.
They are now, but they never were. Here, I thought they were all.
There was a certain time period where that they have to submit them, but if they have old files, shape files, we want those and add them to our system.
Okay, so it was never,
The difference is that they didn't have to get permission before they installed the line. It was filed afterwards.
I made an assumption, okay,
But that language is consistent with oil and water. It's
yeah,
It's basically the same.
It's same, yeah.
They're virtually identical.
Commissioner members, I would just point out that the very last page of your materials in the section behind tab 9, that is the section that Mark was talking about. For
okay.
the full room.
So this is essentially the first reading. You do the 2 public comments, take as much feedback as you can. You sit down with the AG's office, work through that. You come back here and then you go to admin.
Correct, after we get the attorney. Yeah, Ben.
So move,
Second. Discussion. I would just say good work on allowing yourselves to do the hearings if needed, but taking away hearings that are absolutely pro forma 99% of the time. You're still getting all the documents, you're still getting all the information. If anybody opposes any, you can schedule it in time. And I'm just talking about risk penalty hearings. I don't know what the percentage is of contested risk penalty hearings, but I bet it's under 1%,
You probably hear 1 or 2 cases a year.
which alleviates hours and hours and hours of time hearing that is pro forma in nature. And you still have 100% of the information and the ability to do it when there is an issue. Roll call.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Attorney General,
Yes.
Governor.
Now we'll move on to the orders. First order is an application by Hess Bakken Investments to LLC to establish a stand-up 2560 in the Truax Bakken pool. Of this line. Here, here, look at it. See your picture. Wait. So yep. So this application involves stand-up 1,280 acre space units. Current stand-up 2560 acre spacing unit. Go to maybe the next slide. So this is their proposed well, the dashed green line right down the center of those spaces, 4-mile well. And they're also going to drill one additional 2-mile well off that same pad. That's what they proposed. If you go to the next slide, I believe, it shows the entire township. So sections 29 and 32 at the bottom are currently a stand-up 1280. And sections 5 and 8 are currently a stand-up 1280. 17 and 20 are currently a stand-up 1280, excuse me. But sections 5, 8, 17, and 20 are also a stand-up 2560 that's been developed with 14 wells. 13 of the wells are still producing. There's one that was plugged in abandoned. If you look at the center of the 2 sections, see a solid black line. That's that well that was plugged in abandoned. So Hess proposed to drill this 4-mile well from essentially outside the 2560 into the 2560. And the issue that creates is that 2560, 5, 8, 17, and 20 has been fully developed. And when those that spacing is established, the mineral owners, working interest owners in that section kind of have a understanding that that's how that land is developed. Hess proposes to drill this well, like I said, from outside, inside, and Hess acknowledged that there is room to replace that 12-mile well, another 2-mile well on that 2560. That would require a single well trip, and they don't like single well trips. When we asked them, well, how are the owners in 5 and 8 protected? Their response was, well, the oil from that 4-mile horizontal well would be allocated to 17 and 20, which would then get reallocated back up to 5 and 8. But 5 and 8 their interest would be diluted by 50% at that time. Mm-hmm. There also is a Supreme Court case out there. There is Garris versus the North Dakota Industrial Commission. Yeah, that case, I'll remind you, is the case where the overlapping spacing is how is that production to be allocated? Is it just the 4 sections in the spacing, or is it and get reallocated based on pooling agreements? And that decision has not been made in that. And if the Supreme Court were to say it's only the sections in the spacing in 5 and 8 would be cut out completely, and their assumption, and they're right, is that any oil within that 2560, they should get their fair share of it. But now if the Supreme Court decision, as I said, goes to where it's only 17, 20, 29, 30, 5 and 8 would be completely out of that well. Therefore, it does not protect the prerogative rights of the owners in 5 and 8, and I recommend that the application be denied.
Second. Discussion.
Did they bring another option forward, or why would they?
They did not.
Their argument is they're protecting the owners in 5 and 8 by diluting it by 50%.
Yeah,
Why-
but
I mean,
if that's the outcome.
Yeah, I mean, that's a weird definition of protection.
Yeah, it is.
Roll call.
Sure.
Yes.
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 Okay, the next case is case 32073. It's the application of Roger and Marilyn Baker to suspend and revoke permits of 3 XTO wells. This is up in the Grinnell Bakken unit. You can see it on this map, but if you look at section 10, that south half, acres by the surface owner there. And in section 15, where the center pivot irrigations are, essentially in the center, they own the 2 quarters, quarter in the center, so they own the northeast, northwest, and northwest, northeast of section 15, and also own southeast quarter of section 9. And they 10 net acres in section 15, and that is how they are involved in the Grinnell Bakken. The Grinnell Bakken was heard in April of 2018 and became effective April 1st, 2009. Go to the next. That's the Grinnell Bakken unit outlined in red, and the land we're talking about is up there in the upper left. And so section 10 is on the west side of that arm, that bay off of Lake Skakalila. For the next slide. When the Grinnell Bakken unit was formed, the unit agreement provides that all parties here to grant the unit operator the right to use as much of the surface of the land within unit areas may be reasonably necessary for operation and development of the unit area thereon. The unit agreement allows the operator to use as much surface as is reasonably necessary. For the next slide, Roger and Marilyn Baker signed the ratification joiner of the unit agreement for the Grinnell Bakken unit on December 17th, 2018. So they are participating in the So if you go to the next slide. When XTO proposed this unit back in 2018, if you look just above the 96 West, there's a red dot up there. That's the surface location they had proposed for 6 wells when they proposed the unit.
Which dot? The one on the right or the left?
The one above the W, right above the W.
Okay.
On the west side of that bay there. So that XTO proposed a surface location in that area. And the order that approved the unit required that the commission review it in September of 2022, because we knew this unit was going to take a while to get going with all the infrastructure they needed to put in place. So if you go to the next slide, during our review in 2022, this is their development plan, and you can see in this black circle that number 8, that is that same pad in the southeast of section 10. And so then that order also required us to review it again in 2023. So if you go to the next slide, on December 2023, we heard the case again. You can see that number 8 inside that circle, that's that same pad location, the southeast of section 10. And then that order required that we hear it again. So go to the next slide. That was the last slide. That's fine. So they again showed that there was that surface location, southeast quarter, section 10. So originally XTO permitted 7 wells in the southeast of 10, and Baker's filed an application rejecting those wells. XTO ultimately requested, and the commission suspended those permits, and the Actually, ultimately requested to dismiss those permits, so they were dismissed, so there was no hearing held on it. And then Baker's, XTO moved the wells location further north. And they did 3 wells. Referred to those as the Sophia North wells. They filed an objection to those wells. The Commission again suspended them on July 23rd. And then go to the next slide. On April 16th, 2025, the Williams County issued a new building permit to the Bakers. And the Bakers had ordered a prefabricated house in October 2024, and they moved it onto this site in approximately sometime during April 2025. This house location is where the original pad was, and it was within the footprint of that original pad that where those permits were dismissed. So in response to that, XTO moved their permits over 500 feet to the north. In response to that prefabricated house being located there, XTO testified it felt that the placement of that prefabricated house on the original pad location was intentional. But at any rate, they moved their location further to the north, greater than 500 feet from that prefabricated home. Go to the next one, I think. That's just another aerial view of where that is located in relation to the lake. That green line is actually, and you'll see it in the later slide, is to a water well that exists there. Go to the next slide. This is their original proposed location. You can see it's very tucked in that very southeast corner. The access road was proposed to be on the north side of the Baker land. The land north of Baker's is core land. So that makes it difficult to put a road on that land. Go to the next slide. This is their new pad location. They moved it north. You can see in the aerial photo on this side, that's where that prefabricated home is. The distance from the prefabricated house to the edge of the pad is 543 feet. The closest equipment on site, 753 feet. The closest well at 769 feet. And the production equipment is on the north side of the well, so that distance is 950 feet. Therefore, the placement of XTO's wells and the equipment apply with NECC 380805, which requires wells to be greater than 500 feet from an occupied dwelling. And if the well is within 1,000 feet, the surface owner can request that the production equipment be located further away than the wells, and the XTO has already proposed to do that. So that applies with 4302 and 16. And now you can see the access road is proposed to be on the south side of the Baker of section 10 that runs through their center pivot irrigation systems. Energy Sand Solutions filed for a conditional use permit. The next slide. At the hearing, we requested that XTO provides where the pipelines would be. And in this slide, you can see they propose a route on the north side, on the south side. But the road is still down the middle of the center pivot irrigation systems. And the significance of that is that the sand mine that has been proposed there, and they've received a conditional use permit. When they're done mining the sand, they need the irrigation systems. They desire the irrigation systems to water the land to get vegetation reestablished after they've done mining the sand. It's not needed for the sand mining itself, but it makes reclamation a lot easier on the other end. So if you go to the next slide. That's the sand mine area outlined in blue. And the XTO location would be over there on the very north, very east corner of that blue polygon there. You go to the next slide. XTO and Roger Baker had a meeting. He was at the Baker residence in September 2024. And Roger Baker hand drew this map. And it shows, roughly depicts where the sand mining is going to take place. Different contours on the map, the center pivot irrigation system. But if you notice in the top, very top, it does show that Sophia pad there. At that time, that this was hand drawn by Roger Baker.
But it shows it on the southeast
South
corner
side,
instead of this northeast.
Yeah.
It should be the north.
That was the original location.
Okay.
It's the original 6 wells. Okay. Since been moved to Sophia North. Then in relation to the water well, XTO became aware of that when through a letter that was sent to the Department of Resources, there was no public record of that water well. And so XTO testified they are willing to work with the Bakers on the safety of that water well. And after the post hearing, they submitted a letter saying they will drill them a comparable replacement water well, not because they have to, but because they want to. So we took that into consideration. Bakers also proposed 5 alternate locations from where they thought these wells could be drilled. The next slide. See the red boxes, those are their proposed 5 alternatives. We evaluated those locations, and XTO testified as to those locations, those wells. The only one that we feel is a viable alternative is one marked number 1 with the little blue square in it. They refer to that as the Aris pad. There was a little issue during the hearing. The XTO witness presented testimony telephonically, and the Bakers objected to that testimony because it had not been disclosed to the commission or to Bakers at least 3 days before the hearing. We allowed the testimony to take place, but we did not use any of that testimony in our deliberations or the decisions matter or in issuing this order. So we deemed it to be a harmless error. Other witnesses from XTO testified that they've been planning this development for over 6 years. And with all the infrastructure and planning that they've done, that rendered it entered into our decision of, you can't just start moving things around. Some things around, other things have to move around, and other things have to move around. So it's not as easy as saying, well, just drill it from a different location. XTO testified that if they drilled their wells, I guess you can go to the next one. From that altered location, somewhere, 3 wells running south, that's referred to as the Harris pad. Requires a significantly larger step out than what they were planning from the pad on the Baker's land. It's an extra half mile to drill. So they would be roughly 3.5 to 4 mile wells. I know there's been a lot of 3 mile wells drilled and some 4 mile wells drilled out there, but 4 mile wells are certainly not the norm at this point. They feel that puts that last half mile at risk. See a little red dash or box at the end. And they couldn't execute those wells to, they estimate there'd be 450,000 barrels of unrecovered reserves. We did ask the Bakers at the hearing that, that XTO has indicated it's willing to work with you on lessening the impact of their activities on the sand mining operation. And Baker's responded if that a written plan had not been provided by XTO, but if it was, the infrastructure development were to move north away from the center pivot irrigation system, and if that plan is providing writing is something they would. Baker's objections, they argue their objections are grounded in valid concerns regarding surface rights, proximity to residential and water infrastructure, and potential interference with future resource development, specifically with commercial sand mining for the Baker property. Baker's, they spent a lot of time arguing the timeline of events, and timing of the 20-day notices that XTO provided to them. And relative to the events that have been undertaken by the Bakers. And Bakers request that the commission can deny the Sophia North well permits drill. But they did have a caveat that if the commission is inclined to grant the permits, that conditions be placed that protect the resident. It's occupant, the water well, the sand on the property. XTO made multiple damage settlement offers during these negotiations. But both Bakers agree that that's not for the commercial jurisdiction. The remedy for those under set forth in North Dakota Section Code 3811.1. And the Bakers arguments during the timeline of events from 2024 to present were unpersuasive. The Bakers knew or should have known that XTO was planning on putting a service location in the southeast quarter Section 10 as early as December 2018. Approximately 5.5 years before entering into a lease for the sand mine and nearly 6 years before ordering the prefabricated house. XTO's plans were public for many years. In the original unit hearing and the subsequent review hearings, Bakers did not dare to offer any objections. And as I said, all those cases showed a well pad in the southeast quarter section. We believe co-development of the sand and the oil and gas is possible. XTO has offered to mitigate impacts, including moving or placing infrastructure to accommodate sand mining operations. They said they would move the road as sand mining progressed if it was necessary. And they've offered to drill a replacement water well. Also, if the pipelines are either on the north side or the south side where the sand mine has to end and goes back to the adjacent property, they have to have a 3-to-1 slope there, and they've offered to put the pipeline in that slope area that's not going to be mined. XTO has complied with the applicable provisions in ND 380805 and NDAC 42 and 20316. And pursuant to the Grinnell-Bachman unit agreement that was approved by the commission on September 26, 2018, XTO has the right to use as much of the surface as reasonably necessary for the operation development. We recommend that deny the Bakers applications and reinstate the permits. We also have included a provision that the director may impose such conditions as deemed necessary and appropriate by the director on permits to drill for the Baker North wells after discussion with XTO Energy, Roger and Marilyn Baker, and or Energy Sand Solutions. In essence, what we envision is that we would be the arbitrator trying to get them to come to some kind of mutual agreement. Here's my discussion.
So I'll ask what sounds like an obvious question, but from everything we went through here, and looking at this and some of the discussions I've been involved in, some of those on the other side of this, it would appear that XTO is making a reasonable and responsible approach to this situation. It appears as though the footprint has been shrunk up. It's been moved. I know they put some other things on the table. And there's 2 pipeline routes in here. Have they kind of said they would prefer one over the other, or?
They have not.
Okay, so they'll work with the Bakers to try and Well, it sounds like we're working with them.
I think it was important that in the hearing that 3-to-1 cut slope that would occur and that the pipeline could go in that 3-to-1 cut slope where profit mining wasn't just
Okay,
be able to
Okay,
take place anyways. So
that's reasonable.
furthering the implication of the pipeline.
I think the other thing that we have to contend with, which we're charged to do, which is protect relative rights and prevent waste. The one proposal I look in here, we'd be leaving 450,000 barrels.
Puts it at risk, yes.
That becomes an issue and a problem. Well, I appreciate all the hard work, and I know there's a lot of stuff going on. There is a map in here. This-
That's the sand mine area, and it's basically heat map based on the samples that the drilling samples they took out.
Red is the best.
Red is the biggest.
So by the time we even get over here to 10, we're really on the lower end of this scale.
It's lower.
I'm
There's
not
still,
gonna, yeah,
there's still a considerable amount of sand in mine there.
well. I would move the logo.
I'll second it.
Discussion?
You've done a lot of work. This is so well highlights that the tension that's going to come in these matters and it's quite a balancing between important rights and everybody you're discussing has a very important property and economic rights in this, and it's never going to be perfect. It's difficult, and appreciate your recitation on that here this morning. It highlights some of the real challenges, but the fact that there are challenges doesn't mean there's going to be a decision. And decisions come along, and it looks to me like people are at the end of the day finding a way to make this work. The greatest degree of respect for everyone's interests that are involved. So I commend you for that. This is not an easy one at all.
Development agreement in 18. Hearing in 22, hearing in 23, hearing in 24. There are always long-term infrastructure projects when you have the lake involved and dealing with some of those issues up there. So, I mean, this isn't like, we didn't just decide to put it. XTO didn't just decide last week to go put a pad here. This has been noticed and royalty agreement is signed. Yeah. I mean,
And I'm glad they moved it. I mean, when these issues came up, they moved it out of the southeast and moved it into the northeast. To try and have as minimal impact as possible.
anything else? Roll call.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Attorney General,
Yes.
Governor,
Yes.
So the next four are related to the Civic Home Secaucus adventures that you guys heard last month. So these are the confiscation of those. Well, Mark gets those ready. Is it appropriate to hear all four of those together at the same time? Or same?
Should be.
We have 4 different orders, right?
we can have 4 different orders.
We can hear them all at the same time. I think we'll need to vote on them individually.
These four orders, 4 cases involve confiscation of Stockholm Adventure LLC's assets. There are 3 saltwater disposal wells and a treating plant. Just looking real quick, there's a disposal well that's up to the new end. Next slide. This the other 3. So there's a bottom square. There's a triangle. That's a disposal well. Top square. There's a triangle. That's another disposal well. And then on that same pad is the treating plant. We gave personal notice to Stockholm Adventures, although not required by 380811. Paragraph 3. Did not appear in any of these cases. And as I mentioned, the S2 McGregor 1 tank battery for the SB McGregor number 2 and the SB McGregor feeding plant number 1 are all on the same site. The SB Noonan number 1 and the SB McGregor number 2 disposal wells are currently at $50,000 cash bonds. We commercial injection bond rule back in 2020, April 2020, which required commercial injection wells to be on a $100,000 bond. We extended that compliance date to November 30th of 2020. Stockway Ventures never did increase the bond amounts on these wells. The SB McGregor number 2 also had a spill on it that they failed to report within 24 hours and failed to respond with appropriate resources to clean it up. The SB Noonan number 1 well and the SB McGregor number 2 well were subject of a complaint. As Nathan alluded to, in a default order was entered in April of 2025. The SB Noonan number 1 last injected in March of 2024. The SB McGregor number 2 last injected in February 2024, and they are abandoned. The SB McGregor number 1 well was plugged by Stockway Ventures in February of 2015, but the site has not been reclaimed and it remains on a $50,000 cash bond. And the SB McGregor treating plant number 1 was last used in November. It's abandoned and it's on an $85,000 cash bond. We desire to go out and plug, abandon, and reclaim these sites. Therefore, confiscation is necessary of any equipment and sale to oil to help compensate for plugging into the commission and reclaiming these sites. Recommended orders.
So I would move,
Let's do this a little differently. Let's do any discussion first and then we'll take the motions one after the other, so we don't.
well, then I have one question before.
Okay, yeah.
Is this, the last of it? Skyway Ventures has no more assets in North Dakota?
My understanding is
Like, that was my, well, I mean, they didn't participate in the hearings.
did not participate in the complaint process.
They're not, I mean, it's not just officially, it's unofficial. They're. All right.
I would move all 4 and then however the chairman wants to deal with the vote.
Second.
Any discussion? We'll vote on 1, 2, 7, or we'll vote on 3,200 first,
32,000.
or 32,000.
Commissioner,
Yes,
Attorney General.
Yes.
Governor,
Yes. 32,001.
Commissioner,
yes,
Attorney General,
Yes.
Governor,
Yes. 32,002.
Commissioner,
yes,
Attorney General,
Yes.
Governor,
Yes. 32,000.
Commissioner,
yes.
Attorney General,
Yes.
Governor.
Yes. Any other business, Nathan?
I do have just a couple updates. I know we got just a few minutes left, but we've had some interest in stripper wells, so we've had some questions and requests for you relating to those. So we've provided that and finalizing the data for that. There is an interim study that will be conducted for the legislature, and I'm sure that the DMR will be involved in that. We put together data during that time, so we're going to update that data right now. The development incentive well legislation took effect on July 1st, and we have received the DMR has received the first 2 applications, and we will be reviewing those in the coming weeks. During July, the DMR published the process, and it's online, so that's off and running. I provided the North Dakota activity levels through the executive summary that you guys have likely all seen. The production in July was relatively steady and slight increase from June to July at 1.16 million a day, 3.52 BCF a day. Activity levels, 27 drilling rigs and 14 frac crews are currently running in the state. And then the last thing I'll update on is the final stage is a job description for the deputy director role. That's
Incentive well, 2 companies or the same? 2
one
applicants?
company with 2 applications.
Is there more general interest? It's pretty new.
Yeah, and there's a limited amount of companies that are able to apply for that because they haven't had they needed certain activity level for the last 2 years. So for us 10 or 12 companies in the state that can utilize that option. So there is some interest, so that's good.
I have one last thing I forgot to mention, that our proposed rules will be going up on our website today, so that anybody that can look at the full text.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Claire. Brian.
So you've been doing.
No, it's fine. So, Governor and General Commissioner,
Good work, man.
thanks for having us. Appreciate your interest in the grid for economic security, national security, food safety, and our life safety, life support. So in 2023, the Industrial Commission approved or authorized a study on transmission capacity. We engaged Power Systems Engineering to do that work. They began in 2024. And then using lignite research program enhance, preserve, and protect money. Then Brian and I had a conversation about a year ago and talking about the large loads that are coming on from the west to the east of the state, and wanted to expand the study. And we did that. And using State Energy Research Center funding, I'll have a bunch of 520. So one of the things that Ryan and I talked about at that time is that the work we do is aligned, so it can be shared and used by other entities. So we built upon what Power Systems Engineering had already commenced doing with our transmission capacity study. So over the course of this study, Power Systems Engineering did the grid reliability portion of the study, and the ERC DAISY worked on the economic dispatch modeling. So the economics and market pricing impact and congestion impact. So you understand the grid is a dynamic system, and even though we're modeling North Dakota load, the grid, there's impacts on the greater grid. Well, we are not an island. One thing we'd just like to emphasize is that it was an independent study. This isn't a utility doing the study. It's not an RTO doing a study. It's an engineering firm and ERC. So there's been significant interest in North Dakota's capacity to serve, whether it's the oil and gas industry or ag processing, from ethanol, soybeans, potatoes, now in Grand Forks, and large scale livestock operations. And one of the things I noticed when our last presenter showing the irrigation pivot. So, it's not only the potato processing plant that's getting built in Grand Forks or corn ethanol plants. There's increased energy use on the farm, whether it's irrigation or grain drying and so forth. So, and then other data processing and AI load set. So this study is very timely. This study is also going to provide a framework for the interim Energy Development and Transmission Committee. Been working with Chair Anna Novak on that, and she plans to have the full presentation at their next meeting, which is tentatively November 6th. It's also should be valuable to the Advanced Nuclear Energy Committee. Peter from Power Systems Engineering and I met with them, the consultant, yesterday, and again to make sure that we are using the same baseline, so that when you as policymakers are looking at these studies, that they started from the same point. So you don't need any more confusion, right? So it's been rewarding. The process has been rewarding and smooth. It's been wonderful working with the ERC staff on this. Daisy and Peter will give you the report remotely, but Daisy Salvaraj
Salvaraj is a senior research engineer at ERC that is awesome to work with, as well as Peter Kogel from Power Systems Engineering. So they'll be on shortly. I just want, before they come on, just want to note that the full report will be out in a few weeks. And the report was essentially done, but then we decided to add another element to the report in that looking at large loads that could be interruptible. How much more capacity does the system have with those interruptible loads? That will be included in the study. And then Karen visited with you, Governor Armstrong, a 2-pager highlight, and we will have that ready for you on or before the time that the full study comes. All of you policymakers. So
Just for everybody's benefit, this is going to be incredibly detailed, incredibly important. There is federal policy that dramatically affects everything. One thing I've learned in 6 years at PC is you don't have a 1 or 2 page highlight way, it's hard to get. And we do a lot of things really well in North Dakota, but places where if we want to deal with any of the concerns in this issue is going to require federal either legislation or rule change. So that's why the 2-pager will be beneficial for anybody talking to our.
Governor, if I could just extend upon your points, referring back to my PSC time, there wasn't anything more complicated than transmission planning. And with MISO, SPP, your investor owns, your co-ops, I think it was Claire's work and the work that we'd started, I think, putting it together. There's not going to be any big aha today. You're going to see, I think, where we're going in the future if we do build and grow, build, and the importance of natural gas pipelines. It's a complex situation, right? But I think there's no silver bullet, but the importance, I think Claire said, it's unbiased. We just model together and here's what it shows.
Okay.
Good.
So we can turn it over to Daisy. Daisy, I believe you're going to start. So Daisy is a senior research engineer for ERC. Awesome, smart lady, brilliant lady, and very good at communicating the complex issues. Daisy? Oh, that was the other thing. The acronyms. We repent, the electric industry repents because of all of our acronyms, but we keep doing it. So you have those before you, and please interrupt if we are confusing you. Thank you, Karen. Go ahead, Daisy.
Thank you, Claire. Good morning, Governor and Commissioners and other meeting participants. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today and for the opportunity to present the findings of our study. Pete and I will be presenting the highlights of our project, Future-Proofing North Dakota's Electrical Grid, and we look forward to addressing any questions you may have. The goal of this study is twofold. Number one, to provide North Dakota regulators, utilities, and other stakeholders with data and analysis on the state's electrical grid and its ability to accommodate large loads. Number two, to support informed grid planning and decision making for the state's electrical sector, both in near term and for years to come. In this study, Jonathan, can you please advance the slide? Sharon, sorry. No, the next slide. Yeah, so in this study, we utilized 2 modeling approaches to assess system performance under various conditions. First, we used a transmission reliability model to assess how the electric grid responds to peak demand and operational stress. This study included the thermal and voltage analysis. Next, we used an economic model to evaluate electricity generation and dispatch, identify potential transmission bottlenecks, and assess their impact on electricity prices. For both models, we used Southwest Power Pool ITP 25 cases as a foundation. The assessment was conducted across 3 study years, considering future outlook scenarios, year 2 representing 2026, year 5 representing 2029, and year 10 representing 2034. Our base models included both PSSC and ProMod planning models from the ITP 25 study. Also, we developed large load scenarios by incorporating substantial new loads at high voltage substations within North Dakota in the 2029 and 2034 base cases. This allowed us to evaluate system impacts under potential future load growth scenarios. Now I will turn over the time to Pete to present the results from the reliability study. Over to you, Pete.
Thank you, Daisy. Good morning, Governor, Attorney General, Commissioner. With the reliability models from SPP's Integrated Transmission Planning 25 cases, the first thing we looked at is the generation dispatch in those models. We wanted to align or make sure that generation dispatched was aligned between the reliability models and the economic planning models. So for our analysis, existing and approved North Dakota generators, both thermal and renewable generation, are included in these models. We use this included generation dispatch, both for the benchmark cases and the scenarios with the large load connections. The reliability models were not changed to include active MISO, Minn Kota, and SPP generator interconnection queue projects, as you know, those can be questionable on which ones will ultimately get built. The North Dakota area generation is projected to increase during the seasonal peak models, the PSSC power flow models, from 6,700 megawatts in the summer of 2026 up to 7,400 megawatts in the summer of 2034. Next slide, please. This graph displays the, again, seasonal peak load and generation as included in SPP's integrated transmission planning models. These models are developed through inputs from the local balancing authorities, the transmission owners, and MISO and SPP. The average annual seasonal peak demand growth in these models is 1.39% in the summer peaks and 1.35% in the winter peaks. Now, these models, initially started being built about 2 years ago. So we know that the average annual load increase is starting to grow, and we would expect the next set of SPP ITP models to reflect that. Next slide. We also examined the models to determine which transmission and transformer projects were included in the models and called some of those out. We're looking again at high voltage transmission lines and transformers. So in the 2026, the year 2 models, there were 2 345 kV transmission lines that are expected to be in service, and those were included in the models from SPP. Then in 2029, we have 3 new facilities that were added to the models, 2 230 kV lines and a 345 kV line. And then finally, in the 10-year models for 2034, three additional 345 kV facilities are added, two transmission lines and a 115 to 345 kV transformer. Next slide. The PSSE power flow reliability analysis was performed, and we performed both a thermal analysis and a voltage analysis. In the thermal analysis, we looked at system intact, so all facilities are in service, and then an N-1 contingency analysis, which systematically takes out a single transmission facility at a time, reperforms the analysis and records the results. So there are hundreds of N-1 contingencies that were run in the state of North Dakota. We monitored high voltage facilities in North Dakota, those being above 100 kilovolts. We monitored transmission lines and transformers for thermal loadings greater than 90%. For the voltage analysis, again, we monitored the North Dakota transmission system, and that is represented in the models through buses. So the bus can be a substation that connects different transmission lines. And we monitored the North Dakota individual transmission owner voltage criteria for voltage criteria violations. Next slide. As you might expect, the bench or the base case transmission results look very good. These are reliability models. The transmission owners have, put in the facilities that would be required to reliably serve North Dakota residents and demand. So starting in the 2026 summer peak, we see a single voltage violation, 4 thermal violations. And then in the 10-year model, that only increases to 5 voltage violations and 7 thermal violations. All very, very reliable in the bench models. Next slide, please. So then we wanted to build our study models to look at the large load sensitivity analysis. And we settled on, after studying a number of individual sites to see how the models would accept load and the models would solve. This is the result of our large load sensitivity analysis. We grouped the loads into 3 distinct study areas: Eastern North Dakota, Central North Dakota, and Western North Dakota. We added 200 to 300 megawatts at specific points on the transmission system and grouped those together to study from 600 megawatts in the west to 1,100 megawatts in the central and 1,400 megawatts in eastern North Dakota. Next slide.
Could I interrupt?
Yes.
Could I interrupt? Just for for the commission's information, you know where Coal Creek is? Bison is north of Mapleton. Buffalo is at Buffalo. And you know where Ellendale and Jamestown all are. Maple River is north of North Fargo, and Prairie is Grand Forks area. And I think all the rest, Judson and Pioneer Judson, that's Williston.
Pioneers.
Williston, that's where the big power facilities are out there. And Judson is a substation right adjacent. Go ahead, Pete.
Thank you, Claire. Next slide. This is just a representative map of the North Dakota transmission system. we have some representations of the 230 and 345 kV AC transmission lines, and then the two high voltage DC transmission lines. The actual MISO and SPP transmission maps are critical energy infrastructure information, protected, so we're not able to publicly share those maps. This map is showing the three different study areas for the large load, west, central, and east, as Claire just described. Next slide. So the sensitivity results, studying these large load interconnections, we do see the number of violations increasing. In the summer 5-year models, the summer peak models, we've got thermal violations between 7 and 14 that we're seeing. Voltage violations between 1 and 3, and those increase a little bit more in the 10-year models with 4 to 6 voltage violations and 10 to 15 thermal violations. So Daisy is going to next run through the economic results, and I'll turn it over to Daisy.
Thanks, Pete. For the economic study, we performed an integrated electric generation and transmission market simulation using ITP market economic model. Our analysis mainly focused on future one reference scenario, examining North Dakota's electrical grid within MISO LRZ1 and SPP UMZ. As Claire mentioned, it's all interconnected grid. So we have looked at specific zones within MISO and SPP covering North Dakota. The simulation model included detailed generated and load forecast data for every hour of the year and industry forecasts for fuel and emission prices. So these are all from the ITP model. And so this model represents a realistic view of system operations conditions and the costs. We use the hourly load profile of a representative large load, assuming a high load factor, approximately 95%, meaning near peak operation at most of the time. And we scaled it proportionally to have hourly load profile for different scenarios, what Pete has mentioned earlier, like 200 megawatts and 300 megawatts at different locations. So we did develop hourly load profiles for different scenarios and preserving the hourly shape and load factor characteristics. Next slide, please. Key results from this study included forecasts of hourly electricity prices, hourly generation patterns, renewable curtailment and transmission congestion costs. The LMP is basically the price of electricity at a specific location on the power grid. It reflects not only the cost to generate electricity, but also the cost of delivering it to the location, including any congestion or losses along the transmission. Next slide, please. So let me share a few of the important findings from our economic study. This chart here compares the forecasted electricity prices across different scenarios and time periods. So these LMPs are the system-wide average prices for serving the load in MISO LRZ1 and SPP UMZ. So we can see price variation is there across the scenarios. It increases especially in large load scenarios in 2029 and 2034. And seasonal differences like summer versus winter also influence pricing just because of the demand varying across the season, as Pete has mentioned earlier. But the zone-based gap still remains. Across the large load scenarios and throughout the various seasons, the wholesale electricity price increases by anywhere between $2 to $9 per megawatt hour. Next slide, please. In the previous slide, we have seen the wholesale electricity prices averaged over SPP, UMZ, and MISO LRZ1 areas. And this chart here shows the forecasted LMP for a specific eastern location in summer 2029. The blue line represents a large load scenario, while the red dotted line represents the base case, and we can see the higher prices in the large load scenarios, and these prices are mainly driven by increased transmission congestion costs. Next slide, please. So here is the forecasted hourly dispatch of Pioneer 4 CD Unit 1. I've just pulled an example here to show that how a peaking plant dispatch would look like. So as we can see here, it's dispatching intermittently, often at full output to meet high demand or market condition. It's not a base load resource, but it ramps up as needed. It's not about just having enough megawatt in total. It's about whether units can ramp up and meet the hourly peaks and ramps. Hourly dispatch shows if peakers or storage or imports are needed to cover shortfall hours. Next slide, please. The chart on this slide shows the forecasted hourly generation profile overlaid with the curtailment of wind farm, I think Ashtabula wind farm in North Dakota for summer 2034. The red line represents the total potential generation, what the unit could produce if unconstrained. The dark blue line shows the curtailed portion, which is the energy that could not be injected into the grid due to system constraints. The difference between the two reflects the actual energy expected to be delivered under the contract. So in our report, we have compiled the generation dispatch for various units and biofuel sources, and there are different scenarios for different seasons. So more details will be made available in the report. Next slide, please. So here is a summary of our analysis and findings. So as Pete mentioned, thermal and voltage violations increase under large load scenarios compared to the base case. Transmission upgrades and additional generation capacity may help mitigate some of the issues seen in these study. Adding large loads definitely increases LMPs, especially during the summer months where we are seeing higher peak demand. And large loads definitely could create an in-state energy sales opportunities, particularly if supported by transmission network upgrades. And significant load additions may reduce power exports from North Dakota to other regions. Next slide, please. There are a few important areas to consider in future studies. One is the potential role of new gas plants or other generating resources to support the load growth. Another is modeling transmission mitigation options and then comparing those estimated costs against what we are seeing in congestion and LMP prices. And finally, we would like to take a look at co-locating generation with large loads, which could reduce system stress. And as Claire mentioned at the very beginning, we have also modeled the large loads as interruptible one, in which case we are seeing relatively low price compared to the the high load factor large loads. So that those results will all be presented in the final report. And thank you very much. We would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Oh, I appreciate the snapshot.
And you can appreciate the 2-page much more, right?
But is this an illustration also of what we have across our entire system? Because where we have, and I'll use this example right here, and I'm sorry the young lady can't actually see this.
It's the Ashtabula slide, Daisy.
Yeah, so when we have a situation where we're constrained, but there was actually a need. So in other words, we could produce the power, but there was just no way of getting it to the user.
Right.
Yep.
And we're pretty much seeing this across the system in general.
There are, sorry.
Well, I was just gonna ask, are peaking plants manual or are they automated? In other words, when they feel the draw, if there is a draw, there's a demand, are they starting up or is someone having to program, hit a switch?
Most of the peakers are remote control, but
No.
someone is, the Pete or Daisy can back me up on this, but someone's at MISO or SPP is calling on them.
There's a big control room. They're looking at wind, they're looking at peakers, they're looking at demand here, and a grain dryer comes up, then they got it'd be worth the trip to the MISO SPP headquarters and see that big control room. It's pretty big.
Well, we would want to talk to them about when they shut down McKenzie County
Yeah.
just to pull power to Texas.
The governor's point about SPP and MISO, bigger players than ever anticipated in what happens to states.
And Western Area Power is actually the operator for SPP.
Western areas.
Yeah,
okay.
so their facility is in Watertown, South Dakota. That's where they're.
Yeah, that's right. I remember hearing that's the guy that caused all the disruption. Okay.
But it's a huge system, and to credit to the transmission operators, if they hadn't curtailed back in 2022, if the whole system goes down, then you're talking days, maybe weeks to get it back going. So we didn't like 20 minutes out or 30 minutes out, but it sure beats a week out.
I think a little bit of warning though.
Sure.
And the fact that you're looking at energy security, multiple sources, and you shut us down.
Right.
And when we're supplying power to the rest of the country, little short-sighted, but I suspect just simply didn't understand or know. And it probably takes more communication and a better balanced approach, but.
And since that time, they understand, we emphasize that don't shut off natural gas production.
Yes, in the wintertime.
In the wintertime, when you need that to run the generators to keep your system going.
Exactly.
Texas may want to winterize their natural gas production too. I mean,
Yeah.
I think one of the things, and the reason the 2-pager I think is important is this is really technical data. And I think one of the misconceptions of how people view this, mostly because everything's linear, right? A transmission line is linear, everything is linear, but 2022 is a really good example. It's like a flat piece of glass. Right. When you start cracking in the bottom left corner, stresses expand all the way throughout the system. 222 is also unique because Texas had in once in a generation cold front, and it was also more minus 46 degrees in North Dakota. So none of the weather was ice. But
so although you'll get the full report, I don't think the report's done. This is going to be a continual process. And as more gets built and more transmission, we need to keep up on this.
We're talking to the PSC, the utilities. It's not like we're in a vacuum.
I guess that's one of my questions is one, I mean, you have future wind on here. The forecast for future wind is very different now than it was 6 months ago, 8 months ago, 10 months ago, particularly if there's any federal nexus whatsoever. We have cost sharing litigation with, I mean, do you even, like, how do you set the parameters to start?
That's what Daisy talked about. We're not including interconnection right now because when something actually gets connected, maybe then we'll put it in a model.
Yeah, we leave it when we see it.
Yeah, because otherwise it's basically a Ouija board.
Yeah, and there's so much that's in the queue that's even before changes in administration that doesn't get built.
Supply chain might become a factor in this. By the time we're done.
Transformers.
Transformers.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Brian.
Gentlemen.
Thank you, Daisy and Pete.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Governors moved that under the authority of the North Dakota Century Code Section 6-09-3I 44-04-18.4, 44-04-19.2, and 54-63-02 industrial into an executive session. Purpose of renewable energy production, renewable energy program, confidential business, and the Bank of North Dakota confidential business.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
In general,
Yes.
Commissioner?
Yes.
Yes. The commission is meeting in executive session pursuant to NDCC 4404-18.4, 4404-19.2, and 5463-02 to consider a confidentiality request submitted by an applicant to the commission's renewable energy. Fund. Only commission members, their staff, and commission staff will participate in this executive session. Following the Renewable Energy Program executive session, the commission is meeting in executive session to NDCC 609-35, 4404-18.4, and 4404-19.2 to consider those items listed on the agenda under Bank of North Dakota confidential. Only commission members, their staff, commission staff, and Bank of North Dakota staff will participate in this executive session. Any formal action taken by the commission will occur after it reconvenes in open session. Remind the commission members and those present in executive session that the discussion must be limited to the announced purposes. The executive session is anticipated to last approximately 45 minutes and will begin at 10:34 a.m. The executive session will begin at 10:39 a.m. We will take it.
I know.
This executive session has ended at 11:46 a.m. and the commission is reconvened in open session. During the Renewable Energy Program executive session, a confidentiality request was considered. What are your wishes?
I move the confidentiality request.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Commissioner General,
Yes.
Other,
Yes. During the Bank of North Dakota executive session, confidential bank business was discussed. No official action was taken. Agenda is open meeting bank.
Thanks.
And we're gonna push A to the next meeting.
Yes, we sure can.
Okay.
I'm good, thank you.
What else do you have?
The 2026 Farm Financial Stability Program.
Okay.
So we are looking at strong possibility, given historical compounded inflation, high sustained rates, high interest rate environment, remaining sustained, I think, longer than expected, and commodity prices, especially soybeans, with the lack of even really, we're hearing even move soybeans because there's not much place to go. We believe we have a extreme stress situation coming up in our agricultural sector for 2026. Just to remind you, we did a smaller version ag disaster relief loan program working with our community banks and credit unions in early 2024. We would be looking at a broader program. We would look to really mimic the 2019 Farm Financial Stability Program that worked very, very well. It allowed our banks and credit unions to restructure some agricultural debt at some below market rates at some easier repayment terms that then Bank of North Dakota would then participate in and share that risk. Indications from the 2019 program, the repayment on that, the credit loss rates have been excellent on those programs, very, very low. So that gives us some comfort to mimic that and build something like that. We do not yet have the 2026 Farm Financial Stability Program up and ready to go. We are giving early indications to Industrial Commission that we're planning and preparing to build this. We would come with the full program, probably November, December, some time frame for full approval from Industrial Commission so that we could roll out for the 2026 ag renewal season.
And by then, we think we can anticipate in the next 6 to several weeks, we'll know what type of assistance support is coming. That'll give us a better idea of how large that request may be. 'Cause I don't know if this is something we might have all the assets and equity we need to run a program, but just in case, we may have to go to the.
Yeah, I mean, we know the separation between the legislative and the executive branch. We will be in a special session in January because we have HHS appropriations that get approved sometime at the end of December.
Yeah.
All indications from DC are there's going to be some type of year-end disaster relief program. I mean, who knows what? First of all, year-end is a floating target, considering the government's going to shut down at midnight tonight. But just keep those different things in line depending on, I mean, I think if we are rolling out a program at the end of the year and the legislature sure is coming in January, it's going to be a conversation.
Yes.
And we should, I mean, we don't have to create friction just for the sake of creating friction. You're right, we're going to have real disasters. So making sure we have an idea what the federal government's going to do, recognizing the timeline on the North Dakota legislative side, taking all of those factors into consideration when we are doing the most appropriate path forward.
That's good to know, and I think we can be flexible over the year end into January. We do have, the banks do need some time to prepare because most of the ag renewals come in February, March, April, May. And that's when ag renews for the most part.
My concern is not knowing what the federal government is going to do, having no. Because to be honest, they'll know 12 hours before it hits the farm.
And Gretchen, there'll be 2, 3, 4 weeks where we'll really figure out what the mechanics of it. Then we'll know what that shortfall is. Then we'll know if we're going to do something. How short are we going to be? If we are. If that's the case, then it may mean legislative action, say or I hate, God forbid, legacy fund, but there's something that we have to prepare for.
Sure.
So, yeah,
We will incorporate that into our planning and timing. I believe that's all we had for open.
Next regularly scheduled meeting is Monday, October 27th. And
There's a table as well.
2 a.m. 2 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. is a long hitch.
Are we doing 2 p.m.?
Are we doing 2 p.m.?
2 p.m. It is at the Bank of North Dakota. It's the joint meeting with the Bank Advisory Board.
Okay.
That meeting.
There any,
We want to start that a half hour early because we short circuited him on the presentation.
I can sure work on it.
I am assuming we would rather start early than go to 6. I would rather start earlier than go to
I have to
6.
catch a flight that day, so even if we could start earlier, I don't know if the advisory board would want to come in earlier, but.
I think we can be
Depends on flight.
flexible.
Do you know? Let her know. We'll try
I
and
think
get
we
it done as
started
quick as
at
possible.
2, because of your schedule, but I'll check with Connie and see if we can.
Okay.
I'll be the judge of that. We push that up half, huh? I bet.
Oh, talking about.
Okay. Thank you all. Are they here?